Hello, everyone. We have an eminent guest here today with us, Dr. Ashutosh Potdar. He is among the most prominent playwrights and poets writing in Marathi. He has two collections of plays and a collection of poems to his credit. His plays have been performed at several national and international festivals, such as Bharat Ranga Mahotsav, the National School of Drama, Prithvi Theatre, the International Theatre Festival of Kerala, among others. He is the recipient of several awards for writing, such as Maharashtra Foundation's R.C. Datar Award and Government of Maharashtra's Ram Ganesh Gadkari Award. His play has been prescribed in the undergraduate curriculum of University of Mumbai. He is also a researcher. He writes in Marathi and English, and his research includes narrative theory, colonial literature, and theatre studies. He has co-edited a book on performance making, and the archive is to be published by Routledge India. He is the founder and co-editor of Hakara, which is an online peer-reviewed journal of creative expression published in Marathi and English. He has been teaching English and Indian literature, drama, and theatre studies and creative writing at the graduate and postgraduate levels for more than 15 years. He has worked with India Foundation for the Arts in Bangalore, the premier grant-making organization in India. He is currently a faculty of literature and drama at Flame University, Pune. Welcome to the show, Ashutosh.
Thank you. It's my honor to get invited by you and ePrasaran. And thanks a lot to you and also to Janvi, who introduced both of us.
That's true.
Yeah.
I look forward to a wonderful interaction with you.
Yeah.
I would like to start by asking you about your new play production of Drama Queen called I Promise the Bearer, that is opening in Berlin, Germany.
Yeah.
You have mentioned that you followed a different process of writing. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, actually, different process of writing, as in for years I have been writing a play or plays. So as you know, playwriting has been conventional speaking, playwriting has been a solo act by a writer. But actually it's not. If you look at the tradition of playwriting, you also constantly engage with director, the team of performers that is going to perform your play. So, but at the same time, what happens is, as a playwright, you write something and you share it with director, and then you kind of do back and forth with your director and your actor, and come up with a script, which is a kind of performance script, what you say. But conventional speaking, as a playwright, I have written a text and that I have shared with director. But then director responds, and then I rework on it and create the text that will be performed. With this production, which I work very closely with Drama Queen, which is conceived, designed, and performed by Anuja Ghosalkar from Bangalore. So I know Anuja Ghosalkar for years. Since I was in Bangalore, so we were colleagues. And also Anuja has been working in theater for a few years, and she has been mainly working with this genre called documentary theater. She also works with archival material. So she has started working with archival material of her grandfather, great-great-grandfather. And she has brought that material into her performance making, and that has been quite exciting to see her perform on the stage with the material that she has been able to archive from her family. But with this production in July, she contacted me and she said, "Okay, can we work together on a production that she has been conceiving?" And this has been supported by a group in Germany, and this is a collaborative project of 6 international artists and groups across the world. So there are groups and artists from Egypt, USA, Europe, and India, and also Africa. So she asked me if we work together. But then she was also uh, uh, making it clear that she hasn't worked with playwright before. She, as a documentary theater maker, she's primarily worked with the material, with the artist, and created the text for performance. And so she was approaching this performance work from different point of view, and I was approaching from different point of view. And but then I thought, let's try out and see. So she gave an idea. What is this all about? How are they going to work together for the production? So she had some screen printers from Bangalore. She has some designers from Bangalore working on that project. And the idea of performance was around white money. So the whole idea is the Europeans, they give money to fund projects, to create arts, to create performance. But what is the dynamic involved in it? So when someone is funding your project, what kind of dynamic as in what is this economy that's involved? What are different intricacies of social and political culture that's involved in it? What is the politics involved in it when you create something like that? And that was I thought was interesting part for me to get into, and so I got involved in it. I went to Bangalore. I lived there for a few days. We had a residency together, so we worked like throughout the day. And we worked on a script. We created text together. So that way I wrote this play. I wrote along with Anuja, and the script is primarily in English, which is spoken English, but also there are inputs in spoken Marathi, spoken Hindi. But I must also say that the kind of ethos that I like to work with, also very language based. I work in Marathi, so maybe I write in English few sentences. I write in Hindi few sentences. I write in Marathi. In my earlier play, also I have used 3-4 languages at a time. That way, it's a multilingual. So I live in multilingual time. We all of us, in fact, we quickly switch on and off from one language to another language. पण तिथं सुद्धा मराठी तो इथॉस त्याला काय म्हणतो त्याला मराठीपण जे असतं जे मला माहित नाही काय आहे कदाचित इट्स नॉट जस्ट आय कॅनॉट सिंगल इट आउट but there is some association with the language. There is some association with the cultural and social context that language brings in. So I might be writing in English. I might be writing in Hindi, or sometimes I also write, like, use different languages in my text. But at the core, it's a Marathi. So it's not about like saying that it's non-English or non-Gujarati or non-Malayalam. It's more about including all, and also the way we have been growing in this very contemporary, very cosmopolitan, very multilingual context. And of course, it's not just today. I'm just this point of language that has come in, but also since ages we have been living in different languages. So I thought I would better extend it to other practice. So with Anuja, I work with a concept, and also we work with material. Also we work with different processes. For example, she gave an idea, and then I develop a script. But then also again I read out the script, and then we again went to the actual screen printer studio, where I could hear the sounds of screen printing, and also I could hear them talking. I could also look at the material that is being produced after screen printing processes, and that I could bring in the text. simultaneously.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. That is great. And how do you decide about the form of language you are going to use for a particular play? I mean, will you be using standard language or a mixed form of language or dialects? So how do you decide that?
Actually, it's a great question. It makes me think about my own practice of writing. So I've been writing plays for a few years, and it's not just about how one views this language, but also I think it's more about how one engages with the idea and the concept. So of course, it's my natural inclination is towards Marathi. There's no question about it. I actually I can think in Marathi. I can feel in Marathi. That's very clear. Although there are different languages that I could access through, but the Marathi has been primary. But then when I start writing, of course I start writing in Marathi. But over the years, I also use different dialects in Marathi, and I feel that Marathi is not only one thing. Marathi, it's a plural. तिथं मराठी एकच भाषा नाही आहे. तिथं म्हणजे मला माहित नाही मराठीचं प्लुरल कसं अनेक वचन कसं म्हणायचं आपल्याला. पण मराठी भाषा एक नाही आहे. म्हणजे गावोगावी बोलली जाणारी भाषा आहे. वेगवेगळ्या प्रादेशिकतेतनं बोलली जाणारी भाषा आहे. वेगवेगळ्या कारणांसाठी बोलली जाणारी भाषा आहे. आणि जेव्हा सुरुवातीपासून मी लिहित होतो त्यावेळेला मराठी मी माझ्या कोल्हापुरी भाषेमध्ये लिहायचो पहिले. अजूनही मराठी येते. अजूनही मला पुण्यात काही काळ मी आता राहतोय नोकरीच्या निमित्तानं. अजूनही पुण्यात परवा मी एका कोथरूडच्या एका दुकानात गेलो होतो. म्हणजे जेव्हा पुण्यात आलो त्यावेळेला तर तिथं अगदीच कोथरूडमध्ये मग मी त्यांना काहीतरी स्टेशनरी मागवतो, कागद वगैरे मागवतो. तर मला पहिलं वाक्य बोलल्यानंतर ते म्हणले की तुम्ही कोल्हापूरकडचे दिसताय. कारण ते म्हणले हो मी पण तिकडचाच आहे. याचं कारण असं की माझी क्रियापद वापरण्याची पद्धत किंवा काहीतरी अशी वेगळी त्यांना वाटते किंवा अजूनही ती भाषा जात नाही, ती भाषा आहे असं वाटतं. आणि ती खूप नैसर्गिकरित्या आहे. त्यामुळे पहिल्यांदा नाटक जेव्हा मी लिहिलं त्यावेळेला ते अत्यंत बोली भाषेमध्ये, अत्यंत कोल्हापुरी एरियामध्ये व्याकरणाची त्या अर्थानं प्रमाण भाषेचं व्याकरण तिथं लागू पडणार नाही कदाचित, पण अर्थातच नाटकामध्ये आपण ते स्वातंत्र्य घेत असतो. त्यामुळे ज्या वेळेला मी लिहायला सुरुवात करतो त्यावेळेला ते मराठीच येतं. आता मी हा विचार नाही करत की ते प्रमाण भाषा आहे का बिनप्रमाण भाषा. आणि मला तर ह्या मुळात प्रमाण भाषा आणि सर्जनशील प्रक्रिया ह्याचं काही सांगड नाही बसत. ते काय नाही करता येणार. याचं कारण असं की तुमची अभिव्यक्ती ही एखाद्या विशिष्ट भाषेत आणि ज्या भाषेचं व्याकरण, ज्या भाषेचे नियम मांडून ठेवलेले आहेत त्या भाषेमध्ये व्हावी असं काही मला वाटत नाही. आणि किंबहुना हा आपला खूप हा मुद्दा चर्चेला गेलाय वेळोवेळी की प्रमाण भाषा आपण कशाच्या आधारे ठरवणार. त्याची डिक्शनरी आहे त्याची प्रमाण भाषा, जी त्याचं व्याकरण मांडले गेले त्याची प्रमाण भाषा की काय तरी. अर्थात त्याचा मी काय अभ्यासक नाहीये, पण भाषेची विविध रूप आहेत आणि ती मला लिहिताना दिसायला लागतात. तर एक असं होतं की जेव्हा नाटक आपण लिहायला सुरुवात करतो किंवा फॉर दॅट मॅटर कुठल्याही फॉर्म मध्ये आपण लिहायला सुरू करतो त्यावेळेला आपल्याला असं डोक्यात असतं की आपल्याला काय म्हणायचं हे पहिल्यांदा आपण त्याचा विचार करतो. आणि मग प्रामुख्याने नाटकाच्या बाबतीत बोलायचं झालं तर पात्र रचना आपल्या समोर आहे. व्यक्तिरेखा चित्रण आपण करायला लागतो आणि मग करायला लागताना ते आपोआप एखाद्या भाषेचं ते रूप ते पात्र घेऊन येत असतं. अर्थात ही खूप गुंतागुंतीची प्रक्रिया आहे. आणि तुझा प्रश्न हा विचारल्यानंतर मी आत्ताच परत एकदा विचार करायला लागलोय की नाटकात हे वेगळं घडतं, जेव्हा मी कविता लिहितो ते वेगळं घडतं, त्यावेळेला एखादं कथन लिहित असतो ते वेगळं घडतं. त्यानंतर ज्याला आपण म्हणतो की गद्य लिहित असतो त्यावेळेला ते होतं. एखादा समीक्षा लेख लिहित असतो त्यावेळेला तो वेगळा होतो. ही संपूर्ण प्रक्रिया वेगळी असते आणि ती अत्यंत गुंतागुंतीची असते. एका बाजूला आपण नाटकामधनं, म्हणजे नाटकाबाबत बोलायचं झालं तर नाटकामधनं उभा राहणारा अवकाश जो आपण एक मांडत असतो, तो अवकाश मांडत असताना त्याचबरोबर आपण नाटकाबाहेरच्या अवकाशालाही सामोरं जात असतो. कारण नाटकातली पात्रं दिसायला लागतात किंवा नाटकातलं एक संपूर्ण एक विश्व, ज्याला नाटकीय विश्व, नाटकीय जग असं आपण, ते विश्व दिसायला लागतं. पण त्याचबरोबर आपल्याला दिसायला लागतं की ते नाटकाच्या पलीकडचंही जग आहे. ते त्याच्या त्या दोघांच्या मध्ये एक नेहमी संवाद असतो. आणि भले तुम्ही किती बंदिस्त घरात बसून, खोलीत बसून, लॅपटॉप कुठेही लिहित असला तरी तुम्हाला ते आवाज ऐकायला यायला लागतो. आणि ते मला असं वाटतं की जेव्हा नाटकातली भाषा जेव्हा अवतरायला पण लिहायला लागतो, तर तो जे आतलं जग आहे आणि ते बाहेरचं जग, ह्याच्यामधला जो संवाद होत असतो, त्याच्यामधलं त्यातनं एक ते घटित आकाराला यायला लागतं. आता परत इथं थोडस आपण विचार करायला लागलो तर असं लक्षात येतं की आतलं विश्व म्हणजे फक्त ते त्या अर्थानं आतलं विश्व असतं, एक संहितेच्या जगातलं विश्व असतं. म्हणजे मी उदाहरणार्थ अ आणि ब ही दोन पात्र घेतो, कारण अ आणि दोन पात्रांचं आपलं आपलं एक जग मी निर्माण करत असतो नाटकात. पण ते अ आणि ब ही जेव्हा नाटकातली पात्र जेव्हा ती आपल्या आपल्या विश्वात रममाण होऊन त्याच्यामध्ये जे काही त्याचं चिंतन असेल, त्याच्या भावना असतील, त्याचं विश्व निर्माण करत असताना ते संहिता विश्व तर असतंच, पण त्याच वेळेला ते संहिता विश्व बाहेरच्या कुठल्या तरी जगाशी पण संवाद साधत. आणि भले ते आतलं असं म्हटल्यानंतर ते फक्त आतलं नसतं, ते बाहेरचं. आणि मग बाहेरच्या विश्वामध्ये सुद्धा अ आणि ब कोणीतरी पात्र असतं. आणि त्या अ आणि ब पात्रांमधला संवाद, त्याचं एक जग, फक्त संवाद नाही, त्याचं एक जग, त्याचं एक आंतरिक, त्याचे आंतरिक संबंध ह्या अ आणि ब आतल्या जगाबरोबर होतात. आणि त्यामध्ये जे काही देवाणघेवाण होतं, त्यामध्ये जे काही काय म्हणतो त्याला, की काही एक ठिणग्या पडत असतील, त्या ठिणग्या मग एखाद्या विचाराच्या असू शकतील, भावभावनांच्या असू शकतील, यातनं असं काही एक अंधुकसं जग उभं राहतं आणि मग ते आपण जग उतरवायला लागतो. त्यामुळे मला नेहमी असं वाटतं की जेव्हा संहिता लिहित असताना आपण तेवढंच नसतं, ते संहितेपुरतं नसतं. आणि खरं तर नाटकाच्या बाबतीत ती अत्यंत गुंतागुंतीची प्रक्रिया जी असते ती अजून परत जेव्हा नाटक उभं राहतं रंगमंचावरती, तेव्हा ती परत सुरू राहते. कारण परत तुम्ही नट बोलताना बघता, त्यांचं दिग्दर्शकीय अवकाश उभा राहत असतो. अर्थात त्या प्रक्रियेशी मी इतका नंतर स्वतःला बांधून घेते, याचं कारण असं की ते दिग्दर्शक आणि त्याचं एक सर्जनशील रूप असतं. भले मला वाटलेलं नाटक मी लिहित असतो, पण त्याला ती भाषेचं रूप कसं उभं करायचंय रंगमंचावरती, ते तो किंवा ती जे कोणी नाटक करणारे असतील तर ते आपल्या आपल्या परीनं त्या जगाचं आकलन करून घेत असतात. आणि निव्वळ आकलन नाही, तर ते सर्जनशील भान त्याचं. फक्त एक शेवटचा मोठा ह्याच्यामध्ये की असं आतलं आणि बाहेरचं जगाच्यामध्ये काय म्हणतो त्याला, खूप काळं पांढरं असं नातं नसतं, म्हणजे खूप ब्लॅक अँड व्हाईट नसतं, ते ग्रे असतं. म्हणजे असं नसतं की बाहेर दिसतं ते तसंच तसं आपण आत उतरून काढतो. इट्स नॉट अ फोटोग्राफी, ऑलवेज बिन रिफ्लेक्टिव्ह रियालिटी. आणि ती रिफ्लेक्टिव्ह रियालिटी जी असते ती विचारांची असते, ते विचारांचं रिफ्लेक्शन असतं, भावभावनांचं असतं, तसंच ते सर्जनशील प्रक्रियेत. म्हणजे जे न दिसणारं असं काहीतरी त्या नाटकाच्या जगात तयार होतं. हे फक्त मी नाटकाबद्दल बोलतो, बाहेर कवितेचं अजूनच काहीतरी वेगळं असू शकतं.
बरोबर आहे. नक्कीच. ऍक्च्युली पुढचा माझा प्रश्न तोच आहे. मी पण आता मराठीत कंटिन्यू करते, कारण आपण
हो, म्हणजे मी असं कुठे दोन्ही भाषेत कसंही तुम्ही म्हणाल तसं
नाही, हरकत नाही. म्हणजे टू रीच अ वायडर ऑडियन्स आपण इंग्लिश मध्ये करतो.
Yeah, obviously we can keep. So you can bring me on the track. So you can ask
Okay.
English. So we can see how we can manage that.
So connected with this answer is you're exploring various genres of writing, right? So that is theater, plays, poems, short fiction, translations, editing. So these are all different things, and also research. So I would like to know what inspires you to write, I mean, any form, So be it poem, be it a play, because each form has its own demands and challenges.
Yeah.
So how do you go about it?
Okay, so there are different forms. So for time being, I limit myself to a form of poetry. Yeah. So
Sure.
instead of
Yeah.
just looking at different other forms, so we can keep
Mhm.
that discussion for some other time.
Yeah.
So I just would like to extend what I will discuss. So I said, well, I write a play. I try to build characters through the inner world of the play, and inner world of the play is not like independent of outer world. And I also said that that doesn't mean that there is very straightforward black and white kind of relationship between inner and outer. And then going further, when a certain play comes on the stage, it has also different dynamic of staging the work. And this is very different process while writing poem, and that is so exciting. I mean, in recent time, I started focusing more on poetry writing because one thing is that that playwriting is quite what do you call? It's not only lonely act. It requires much more dialogic connection with the world outside. But of course, a poem would also require the dialogic connection with the world outside. But here, what happens is that as a playwright, you have to be also conscious of the fact that you are you are you're creating this dramatic space for someone to engage with. So you build your characters through a play, but then you are building the characters in order to create the space of engagement with your team of performers and also with the audience. So what I mean by audience is not just audience, those who come to watch your play, but also the larger public, larger society. With a poem, I think I like to take liberty of not thinking about my audience, my readers all the time. So of course that doesn't mean that I don't want readers to read my poem. Although I'm conscious of the fact that someone is going to read a poem, and in fact sometimes I like reading aloud for someone, but at the same time I'm not conscious of it. I can explore my own person. So that's why uh, most of times when someone writes a poem, it's about building that intimate space with your words, intimate relationship with your words, and that is poetry. I think all about where you're building that very kind of intimate connection with the word that you are using. And also with poem, you can always play inside outside. Like though you are exploring inner world, thinking about outside world, but not this dynamic is not very clear all the time in a poem. So I like to relieve my world through the words. Now, what happens with the poem is uh, more than relieving through visuals, you leave them through your words and the sounds. So you relieve those sounds of what is happening around you, sounds of your conversation, in actual real life, sounds of people actually talking around you, and these are just like physical sound, but also there is inner sound that you want to relieve through words that only you can. So it's like you can dream, but you cannot let others enter the dream, and that's I think the world of a poem, where you are creating world, but also you are allowing others a limited space for an entry. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that you don't want them enter. You want them to enter, but their own perception of the world.
But
Yeah. So the world I create in a poem, that I'm very sure of. I'm very honest about creating the world. But however, the way you perceive it as a reader could be very different from my world that I have created. So they have to translate the world for them. Translate the world. So yeah, it could be very different. It could be different. But however, in a play, there is some common space between your team of performers, and also the audience. There is some common space. I'm not saying that the entire play is building on the basis of that common space. There is some, but in poem there may not be any common space at all. So you might read something else from what I have written. Yeah.
So you have mentioned somewhere that the sounds or the Nada Bhasha has a huge impact on your mind, and in your poems we can find it. I'm giving special reference to your poem Mami Ajji.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You have read that. Yeah.
So I would like to know more about it.
Yeah, it's actually, I wrote two poems about my Mami Ajji, and I grew up in the place where I grew up with my Ajji, and everyone does that. But so when I think of Mami Ajji, of course I remember her whole thing, but more I remember about her movements. How would she, walk through the house, and what kind of activities she would be involved in, and also I remember the texture of her sound. So the way she would kind of work in the kitchen, way she would work in different activities. I'll read a poem. So is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
But I can't translate. I'm not a good translator. So, but I'm not going to translate Marathi, whatever I have written. But then maybe. Yes. So, Mami Ajji एक. खाली वर खाली, इकडे तिकडे दिवसभर, वर भर उरका उरकी अजब काम, सतत मर जगभर मायाळू आय, हश हुश साय सुट नाय काय गाणारी गाय, पदर मोड जीव तोड गिरण गाव बोलावे काय, दळण कांडण भात वरण गाव जेवण भरली माय. So actually, her life was not like about herself alone. She would live for her husband, Azuba, or like her sons, and not only it was not the entire her affair was not only about herself or her family. Also, a number of people will visit our home all the time throughout the day, since like 7 o'clock in the morning till late 8:30 and 10. So दळण कांडण भात वरण गाव जेवण भरली माय. So basically it's not about घर, also about गाव. So आमच्याकडे घरातली 2 दार असतात, एक बाहेरचं दार आणि एक मागचं दार, परसाकडचं दार आणि मुख्य दार. तर मागणे लोक यायची आणि मागल्या दाराने यायची आणि पुढल्या दाराने. सो आणि संपूर्ण जे अफेअर असायचं ते दॅट वुड बी कनेक्टेड टू ड्रिंकिंग अँड इटिंग, चहा प्या, पाणी प्या, जेवण खाण, देणं घेणं, हे सगळं. पुरुष मंडळी बाहेरच्या खोलीत बसून आपल्याला सगळंच येतं अशा ह्याच्यात बसायची, किंवा आपल्याला आपण सगळंच हँडल करतो. पण ऍक्च्युली आय डोंट हॅव टू से दिस थिंग, बट ऍक्च्युली रिअल वर्क वुड बी डन बाय ऑल दिस women. And women in the house.
Yeah.
So that way it was very patriarchal. Uh, uh, but also there was the sense of belongingness from everyone who would visit our place. And the point of contact for them was, of course, Aji. And there was no kind of transaction involved. So she wouldn't have any money to offer, because that way she didn't have any financial freedom, like several other mothers and women in our society. And that's very unfortunate. But at the same time, she had kind of, without involvement any kind of economic transaction, financial transaction, she had access to everything because of the love, because of the affinity, because of the sense of belongingness that everyone felt with the house. So तिनं ते सगळं जग धरलेलं होतं. So I remember about her through all these actions of her, and those sounds will haunt all the time. Yeah.
Yes. Now going to adaptation. So can you tell us about the adaptation of plays written by Dario Fo, Jean Genet? I don't know whether the pronunciation is correct.
Jenny, yeah, it's Jenny.
Jenny, August Strindberg, and Harold Printer into Marathi. So adaptation must be a different process, right?
Yeah, it's a different process. Actually, I have adapted some of the plays. I mean, there are mainly two reasons. One is that at some point you can't write your own. I mean, you can't write all the time, by the way. I must make it very clear. So जसं तुम्ही नेहमी काही गोष्टी नाही करू शकत. Though you are a writer, you don't write all the time. You don't live in that world all the time. Practically it's not possible. Also, तेवढं imagination पण नसतं. बऱ्याच वेळेला you also are stuck. You also block. So you want to just you want to just not write. But there are a few things that you cannot think about, and so there is one time that I don't write for months. And I'm not like one of those writers ki sakai utha आता, you get up early in the morning and 5 to 7 करा. एवढं काही सुचत पण नाही, there are no thoughts, there is no call. So sometimes such phases come in, and then I like to utilize those phases by doing something else.
Okay.
So that time I try to do translations and adaptation. And also another reason is I did adaptation and translation is that sometimes you get amazed by the power of these words, power of the form, the way they write. You want to learn so many things from them. You're fascinated by the word that they create.
Yes.
So there is a thing that they have written such amazing thing. Why should I write? Basically, let's read that and enjoy it, and you don't have to push all the time. You feel like, okay, I want to say the similar thing, but this man, this woman has said something, the same thing, similar thing in much more fascinating manner than I would have done. So you feel that you can't write like this. So why not to bring that in Marathi? So that is like one of the reasons why I go for translation. There's nothing like in chalo he मोठा लेखक आहे हा मराठी माणसासमोर आणायला पाहिजे असले काही एवढ्या विचारानं ह्या नाही विचारानं, unless there is some kind of thing. So actually, it's more a personal call
Mhm.
to translate these people. That's one thing. So I like, for example, when I did George Jenny's The Maids, which is an amazing play about two sisters,
Okay.
and they are also maid servants in a house. And I was I was intrigued by the politics that was between two sisters, and also it was not just politics, but also the way he had handled the form at the time he wrote this play, when he wrote this play. And it was about two sisters, about their dreams. It was about how uh, uh, how an oppressive regime can be toppled through the dramatic form. And it was not very that way. It was not very black and white. Okay, I want to bring change in the society, but it was very much at a subtle level that these two characters play with the form, and Jenny played with the form. So basically, I was fascinated by this play, and it was originally in French language. I don't know French, but then
Okay.
I adapted it through the English translation of the scene. That is one thing. So I want to understand intricacies of drama as a form. That's why I feel I should do this. Another reason for whatever translations and adaptations I've done, and I keep on doing from time to time, is is that I want to also build material, what do you call it, teaching material or class material for my students. Uh, so it's a kind of pedagogic engagement for my work. So before I started teaching here, I was teaching in Ichalkarji, in Kolhapur, in Kadakavali, in Miraz. I worked at those places. And also, I used to work with small theater groups, college, uh, uh, and other amateur groups. And I thought I should share this script as a part of engagement with a different culture, a different theatrical culture, different different social and political culture. So I translated some of the text. And recently I did a translation of a wonderful playwright from Delhi, Neil Chowdhury. So that in Marathi for Hakara, that that we published. So and also Neil is my contemporary. He works in he's a playwright. He's theater director from Delhi, and I thought his work I should be sharing with my friends from theater. So yeah, I did.
You mentioned Hakara just now. So it's a bilingual online journal, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell us about it? I mean, what is the objective of Hakara? And
so actually, you might have sensed that in today's time we work with different forms, different languages, and across India, sometimes also outside India. So in a way, when you are doing the play, you are writing a poem, your work is translated into different other languages. Your play is being performed in, say, for example, outside Maharashtra, in Kerala, in Delhi. As a part of also my earlier job when I was in Bangalore, I used to visit different places in India for my job. So I used to understand and talk about different arts practices. And at that point, I realized when I came to Pune, I realized there has to be some platform which can engage with kind of these different forms. So though you are playwright, you are poet, you write in Marathi, but you're not like doing only in one language or for only certain kind of people. You have been engaging now with different people They come from different backgrounds, and also they are connected to different forms. So as a teacher, as a writer, as a as someone who watches plays and films, you constantly also engage with visual arts, uh, literary arts,
Correct.
different other art. So the idea was not to have not to have only one platform, but also the platform which engages with kind of different forms. So then at the time I also did some of the readings of very interesting texts on the idea of contemporary. Samakalin म्हणजे काय असतं? What is contemporary? I did that with Nupur Desai, who then was doing a PhD from Tata Institute of Social Science, and she writes on arts, visual arts, and she was then based in Pune, and so we thought, why not to have such a common platform which can open this kind of engagement with different forms simultaneously and different languages. So it's not just in Marathi, as you know, Hakara is in Marathi as well as in English. Hakara doesn't only publish on performing arts or literary arts, but also on visual arts. And so Nupur joined, and both of us have been working on Hakara, publishing Hakara, editing Hakara since more than 5 years. I think 5 years, yeah, 5 saal. So we kind of look at this as a space where critical engagement is possible with different forms. Yeah, and we have been publishing it like thrice in a year, and we have been doing it for 5 years. Yeah,
That is great. Coming back to your plays, so in your play Sindhu Sudhakaram and Itar, there are distinct identities and spaces and circumstances, so from the past and from the present, right? So this is really fascinating. So I would like to know more about it, especially with reference to the language.
Sindhu Sudhakaram and Itar is the play I wrote in response to Ekas Pyala, which was written by famous. This play itself is a famous playwright, also very, very famous in Maharashtra, Ram Ganesh Gadkari. So it so happened that Alok Rajwade, who is fascinating director and actor, he runs Natak Company, part of Natak Company, and he asked me if I would be interested in creating a performance text of Ekas Pyala. So they wanted to play, they wanted to perform Ekas Pyala. So of course I am also one of those Marathi readers who is fascinated by Ram Ganesh Gadkari's writing. So it's amazing writing. And Ekas Pyala, so yes, it has been kind of one of the most read plays in the history of Marathi theatre. But then I also thought, like, Ekas Pyala has been done by several people. I mean, it will be performed again and again. I grew up, watching different scenes from Ekas Pyala. कोणी सुधाकर करतो, कोणी सिंधू करतं, कोणी तळीराम करतं, आणि आपल्या घरोघरी असं ते असतं की हा तुझा तळीराम होईल, तुझा सुधाकर होईल, असं लाईक दॅट काइंड ऑफ थिंग. हे एवढी दारू पिऊ नकोस वगैरे, बिकॉज in a middle class childhood you are grown up listening all the stories about Sudhakar, तुझा एकच प्याला झाला, सिंधूचं काय झालं, दारूचे नशा. पण देन मग मी आलोकला असं म्हणालो की why to do एकच प्याला, like instead can we look at एकच प्याला from contemporary perspective? Is there possibility, like we are in 2017, we did this play in 2017, and in 2017, and then there are a number of films that are coming up. In the same time, some Sangeet Natak thing was also being revitalized. Number of people were doing Sangeet Natak, cinema. And also, I realize is people like, when they go and watch Sangeet Natak, की त्यांना ते नाटक कुठलंय काय त्यापेक्षा ते पदांमध्ये खूप इंटरेस्ट. सगळेच they will follow paths and मग ते असं. And so there is of course there is a certain class who has been involved in it. And also there is a certain age group who is attracted to Sangeet Natak. But also in recent time that dynamic has also changed, where actually diverse age groups have been watching performing Sangeet Natak. But then there is a certain middle class that has been. So I was thinking why not to reflect on the play, this Ekach Pyala, and take an opportunity of responding to how Marathi-ness had changed over the years, and how what actually happened with the form of the play in Marathi. Because Ekach Pyala, when Ekach Pyala was written by Ram Ganesh Gadkari, he was also responding to the form of the play itself, which is Shakespearean play, which is very standard play structure, which again was coming from colonial time. So in 19th century, second half of 19th century, we have seen number of plays by Shakespeare being translated into Marathi, and those kind of translations gave us a sense of what tragedy should be. शोकांतिका काय असायला पाहिजे, म्हणजे शोकांतिका मुळात असू शकते का नसू शकते भारतीय परंपरेमध्ये, हा एक वेगळाच मुद्दा आहे. तो चर्चेला जाऊ शकतो. पण following Shakespearean play, the plays are being, some of the plays are being written, and also there is a kind of proper act structure, act 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I wanted to respond to that actually through Ekach Pyala. So my response was on two levels. One is what actually happened during the time when Ekach Pyala was written, not just in terms of society, but also in terms of the form of the play. How society was responding to the form of the drama itself. That was one. And of course, then there would be kind of colonial society, relationship with man and woman. So I was kind of, looking at what kind of relationship that Sudhakar and Sindhu had in those days. And I want to look at it from a contemporary perspective. So now, as a writer, as a playwright, as a poet, how am I responding to that certain situation? In 2017, now the society has changed. There has been kind of major shift in the politics in India. There is kind of emergence of fundamentalism in new state machinery and not state machinery. There has also been censorship from state as well as non-state. So all these things were happening, and I wanted to, and also there is changing idea of morality. Now, see, the thing is that the idea of morality hasn't been rigid all the time. It constantly changes. It has been evolving. आज जे आपल्याला चांगलं वाटतं ते उद्या कदाचित नाही वाटणार, किंवा काल जे चांगलं वाटत होतं ते जे वाईट होतं ते आता चांगलं. देर आर नंबर ऑफ थिंग्स दे कीप ऑन इव्हॉल्विंग. म्हणजे ज्या नाटकाला आपण मेलोड्रामॅटिक नाटक म्हणून म्हणतो ते कदाचित रिअल वाटू शकेल, ज्याला आपण रिअल नाटक म्हणतो ते कदाचित आता मेलोड्रामॅटिक वाटू शकेल. बिकॉज ऑल्सो द वे आर्टिस्टिक प्रोसेस have changed over the years. They are different from time to time, and we cannot say that this was the thing. We cannot say this. Okay, this was the drama. Drama has also evolved. The responses have also evolved. Characters have evolved. So I wanted to look at those things with the play, and I wanted to also see if there is another perspective altogether. So while writing the play, मला तीन चेहरे दिसतात, like Datta Gurun Sarkha. So you have this Sindhu from Gadkaristan, and you have this Ram or Rama from today's time. And then when they look at each other, there is something third that evolves. It's like तुम्हाला काहीतरी वेगळं ऐकू येऊ शकतं त्यात. It's not because you're also in a way you're also photoshopping the culture. So on one hand, you cannot leave the past. You cannot say this, okay, this is the past, done. Past is constantly flows. It's not frozen in the time. But when you look at the present, it's not only present. There is something that is the residue of the past. And so that way, there is a past, present, and something else, which is combination of all. So the whole idea of writing the play is that time is not constant. Time is not frozen. Time is not rigid. They are collapsing. And when the times collapse, because the thing is that we cannot say, okay, Ramayana has happened in the past, but Ram lives in different forms. That could be form that has come to us through television or popular forms or say Bharatiya Janata Party or some political parties in India, or like some of the story that I grew up listening to. And also Ram is not a singular identity. There are multiple Ramayanas and multiple Rams across India. तुम्ही कुठेही गेल्यानंतर तुम्हाला दिसतं की राम हा वनवासातनं आपल्या गावी आलेला असतोच. कोणी सहज सांगू शकतं ना आमच्या इथे राम आले. This is also kind of organic relationship that we have developed with our epics. आपल्या रामायण आणि महाभारताबरोबर आणि ते आपल्या जगण्यातला भाग आहे. So that way it is not just what you call, it's not just past. So through Ekach Pyala, I wanted to look at what is Sindhu and Sudhakar to me in Capricorn. Which is very free flowing, which is constantly evolving. So अजूनही मद्यपानाचे माझे काही समजुती आहेत. अजूनही आपल्या समाजाच्या समजुती आहेत. म्हणजे एकच त्याला आपण पूर्ण विसरलेलो नाहीये आणि तो विसरणार पण नाही, पण त्याचं रूप काहीतरी बदलतं. सो असं असू शकेल की तो सुधाकर तो त्या काळात हे असेल, पण माझ्या काळामध्ये आज माझ्या बरोबरचे मित्र मैत्रिणी त्या अर्थानं आमचं दारू बरोबरचं रम बरोबरचं रिलेशनशिपच बदललेलं आहे. इट्स नॉट लाईक व्हॉट इट वॉज इन एकच प्याला टाइम, राम गणेश टाइम. So I wanted to look at those things, and I worked accordingly. Yeah, and so I worked accordingly with the language also. Okay. So there was a language of Ekach Pyala, there was a language of our time, this time. Okay. And also I could experiment with Marathi. As I said in the beginning, Marathis. अनेक मराठींच्या बरोबर आपण काम. And yeah, so I did with that.
Can you give any example of how you have played with the language in this play?
Like for example, दोन म्हणजे नाटकाचं स्ट्रक्चर करत असताना सिंधू सुधाकर रम आणि इतर ह्या नाटकाचं स्ट्रक्चर करत असताना I opened the play with a scene from एकच प्याला. पण एका बाजूला एकच प्याला वाचत असताना आज what is the response? I mean, that response would come in contemporary language, but also I developed a scene where all the characters would sit together. Characters from Ekach Pyala and characters from today's context, they will sit together and they will engage with each other.
Wow.
So that way there would be clash, but there will be also extension. So the thing about Marathi or any other language is that there is an extension of this. So the extension of Ekach Pyala is in a certain kind of society or group within a society. So what I'm trying to say is Ekach Pyala is a form that middle class in Marathi has worked with or responded. So that way there is a one line, but there are also Marathis in in the play that I have utilized. So, for example, Inder, who is playing a role of Sudhakar. So he is playing from different context, because Inder comes from totally different different social political context, and he says that while doing um, while doing character of Sudhakar, he looks at it from different ways. For example, I'll just read out.
Yes.
I'll read out a passage or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. Actually, it's a long. So it's Inder who is playing Sudhakar's character,
Okay.
and he says, "Okay, I'll read it out."
Yeah, sure.
मी म्हणजे इंदरने घालायचा. आता हा कोट सुधाकरचा, म्हणून मी म्हणजे इंदरने घालायचा. पण मी सुधाकर म्हणून नाटकात नाही, कारण नाटक करायचं नाही. मी सुधाकरची पर्सनॅलिटी असणार नुसत्या वाचनासाठी, सुधाकरचे डायलॉग वाचायसाठी, पण नाटक करणार नाही. तरी नाटकातल्या जगात फिरणार, विचार करत. मी सुधाकर आहे की सुधाकर सारखा कोट घालणारा सिनेमातला कोणी माणूस आहे. जो हा कोट घालेल तो खरा, काय मी इंदर सुधाकरचा कोट घातलेला खरा? म्हणजे मी इंदर कुठं असणार तेव्हा? इंदरवाला सुधाकर खरा काय सिनेमावाला सुधाकर खरा? सुधाकर खरा, मग मी कोण? मनात कसला गुत्ताळा झालाय. तरी बरं मी मनातल्या मनात बडबडतोय, नाहीतर बाहेरच्याला वाटायचं हा काय बरळतोय, ह्यो म्हणजे शिलाई काम करणारा टेलरच. आम्हाला गावाकडे शिंपीच म्हणतात. ह्यो शिंपी माणूस एवढा विचार करतोय. अरे तुझ्या येडझव्यानो, विचार करायला नुसतं सुधाकर सारखं कोणतरी हायफाय व्हायला लागते. हा, टेलर लोकांनी काय विचार करायचा नसतोय होय? खरं म्हणायचं तर कोण खरा आणि कोण खोटा हे गोमचाळ आमच्या गावाकडच्या नाटकात होतं की. आता असं नाही की मी नाटक बघत वाढलो, पण एखाद दुसरं नाटक व्हायचं देवळा पुढच्या, नाहीतर चावडी पुढं पारावर. त्या नाटकात कोणतरी देव व्हायचं, कोणीतरी कोट घालून बडा माणूस व्हायचा, नाहीतर फाटकी कापडं घालून कोणीतरी भिकारी व्हायचं. नाटकाची वही घेऊन बसायचो, हातवारे करत प्रॉम्प्टिंग करायचो. आम्ही सगळे कळकट हाताना भडंग खात चहा आणायचो. नाटकातला देव दिवसा ट्रॅक्स चालवायचा आणि तो भिकारी किराणी मालाचं दुकान. हसतो. चलो, आता मी सुधाकर होतो. कोट चढवतो. सुधाकर, सुधा, ए सुध्या. इथल्या कडक चर्चेवरनं एवढं मात्र कळते की हा कुठल्या ऐऱ्यागऱ्याचा कोट नसून म्युझियमात ठेवतात तसलाय. वजनदार आणि नामवंत ऐतिहासिक बापयाचा कोट. कोट काढतो, घालतो, परत काढतो, परत घालतो. 70-80 वर्षाचा काळ मी मागे पुढे केला आता. So what it says, what this character says, 70-80 वर्षाचा काळ मागे पुढे केला. So the whole, actually I wanted to play with the material quote. I cannot read this very effectively the way Onkar Govardhan, who played Sudhakar, and Inder. So I'm not very good reader. But then also I have used this language of Marathi dialect for Inder. And also I wanted to work with the material. So like coat. तो कोट आपण हे करत असताना त्यावेळेला तुम्ही तो काळ बदलत असता. So that was the thing with the language and material. Wow. Yeah.
Really nice. Thank you for reading it out.
Yeah.
Then when I read radio plays, I could find a strong presence of thresholdness. or also myths and regional flavor. So in your writing. So does this have any connection with your social background or childhood?
राईट. थ्रेशोल्ड किंवा उंबरा हे तर म्हणजे मला दीज आर ऑल रिकरिंग इमेजेस. ऍक्च्युली उंबरा इज अ रिकरिंग इमेज. माझ्या कविता संग्रहाचं नावच खेळ खेळत राहतो उंबरा असं आहे, विच वॉज पब्लिश बाय कॉपर कॉइन. So basically, umbra is a concept. I think it's, of course, it's a physical thing. घरात उंबरा असतो. आता ते उंबरे दिसत नाहीत, पण आय ग्रू अप लुकिंग ॲट उंबरा. उंबऱ्यावरती राहून तुम्हाला आतलं जग दिसतं आणि बाहेर. हा जो इनसाइड आउटचा गेम आहे तो मला उंबरा खूप, दॅट्स वाय आय एम so fascinated by the idea of umbra. And because of course it's about childhood. Of course I remember umbra, because through umbra I could call out someone who was inside my house. अगदी ती हाक दिली की तुम्हाला परसुदारापर्यंत तुमची हाक जाऊ शकते. आणि उंबऱ्यावरती घरातल्या त्याच उंबऱ्यावर बसून तुम्ही अगदी दरवाजाच्या बाहेरचं पण तुम्ही हाक तिथं. उंबऱ्याच्या आजूबाजूला, बाय द वे, आय ऑल्सो ग्रू अप लुकिंग ॲट दोज शॅडोज. घराचे सूर्यकिरणांमुळे सावल्या पडायच्या आणि त्या सावल्यांवरनं घरात माझ्या जी वेळ किती वाजलेत हे सांगू शकायचे. आत्ता हे 1:30 वाजलेलं आहे, आता 4 वाजलेलं आहे, सकाळचे 10 वाजले. हे तिचं घड्याळ एकदम परफेक्ट होतं काय. म्हणजे त्याच्याबद्दल काय. आणि दुसरं म्हणजे उंबऱ्याच्या आजूबाजूला पाली पण असायच्या. आता पाल लोकांना आवडत नाही, पालीबद्दलचा उच्चारही करणं, पण पाल ना घड्याळ असायची. पाल ना ऍक्च्युली मला पालीचं अस्तित्व हे खूप महत्वाचा भाग होता त्या एकूण संपूर्ण घराच्या संकल्पनेत. घराच्या अवकाशामध्ये पाल किंवा कुठलेही फॉर दॅट मॅटर जनावर, तर ते भाग तो नैसर्गिकच भाग होता. भले ते आता आपल्याला आता अंगावरती आल्याचं त्रास होतो, मला काही नाही वाटत त्याच्या पाल. अजूनही तिची पाल फिलिंग असती, झुरळ फिलिंग असती. पण हे सगळं उंबऱ्याच्या आजूबाजूला, घराचा आत आणि बाहेर, तिथं मग पाल, झुरळ, ढेकू, पिसवा, आणि मग त्यांच्याबरोबर ज्याच्या बरोबर ते असायची तिथं मग ती भिंती, सारवलेल्या भिंती, मातीच्या भिंती, म्हैस, रेडकू, बैल, कुत्र, सगळं अख्खी व्यवस्था. आणि ह्यांना सोडून यू कॅन नॉट इमॅजिन अन हाऊस. ह्याच्यात yeah, actually I lived so that way. Of course, and then moved out of my place and सगळं नंतर घरं बदलली, शिक्षणानिमित्त आपण बाहेर पडतो. पण अजूनही मला ती जी संकल्पना आहे, घर ही संकल्पना, ह्या सगळ्या गोष्टींवरती दिसते. सो I think all these images have very strong presence in my writing and also my thinking. म्हणजे मला असं वाटत नाही की ते फक्त यू कॅन यूज these animals or objects just for the sake of using them. I'm not romanticizing them. I'm not glorifying them. I don't have any nostalgia by them. कारण nostalgia, I don't believe in nostalgia. In fact, all these images, all these sounds, all these compositions of interior of the house, they also remind you of the patriarchy. They also remind you of the darkness in a Mazghar. They also remind you that the women in your house were, were inside all the time. They couldn't see the light of the day. So, because she didn't have access to the clock, actually, if you think that. So she had to rely on lizards. She had to rely on the shadows. Is it not? I mean, on the one hand, okay, wow, my grandmother can say all this. Also, another side of it is that she always remain inside, or not just she. I mean, the women like her, all those who. I mean, there was also caste hierarchy that played out so well. There was also economic structure that was part of the household, which also highlighted the gender hierarchies between man and woman, hierarchies. So in a way, we may talk about this, our childhood, we had like nice things, but also we are keeping out certain things that we don't want to talk about. But then one can be also open. So I think the idea of Umra allows me to be an insider and outsider at the same time. So Umra is a physical object that separates two worlds, but also Umra is a notion that also connects different objects inside and outside.
Nice.
And I think also it's like a नरसिंहाचं रूप असतं की बऱ्यावरती बसून सकाळने ही संध्याकाळने ही रात ही जे काही एक मोठं मी एका नाटकात ते वापरले नाटक आठवत एक कविता की जी तो मला कारण ती गोष्ट लहानपणी त्या अंधारात नरसिंहाचं रूप जे आहे ते आपल्याला असं आठवलं तरी एकदम वाव मांडीवर बसून तो असं हिरण्यकश्यपूचं हे आणि ते उमऱ्यावर बसून सो आय थिंक उमरा I can look at our own past and present with a critical insight. One doesn't have to be nostalgic about the past. I mean, nostalgia is an entry. It's a very, we can say this, okay, good and bad. ना आमचं घर ना आमच्याकडे खूप लहानपणी छान होतं, किती छान होतं, आम्ही शेतात राहायचो होतो वगैरे. आणि आता बाबा शहराचं कसं झालंय, सगळीकडे बकालय. आम्हाला ना कधी कधी गावात जाऊन राहावंसं वाटतं. These are very typical like thing that we keep on hearing. In a way, it's a melodrama. किती छान आधीचं किती छान आताच. Okay, at the starting point is okay. I'm not saying that one doesn't have to be nostalgic, but also one has to also constantly check in the contest the idea of melodrama. कारण गुड अँड बॅड हे इतकं नसतं. आता हे ज्या पद्धतीने रोमॅन्टिसाइज खेड्यांना केलं जातं और शहरांना केलं जातं किंवा एखाद्या भूतकाळातल्या म्हणजे आमच्याकडे सगळंच होतं. आमच्याकडे विमानं पण लोक चालवायची, आमच्याकडं युद्ध पण व्हायची, आमच्याकडे ना आज काय आमच्याकडे असं पण होऊन गेलेलं होतं, आमच्याकडे खूप डॉक्टर चांगले होते, आमच्याकडे इंजिनियर. हो ठीक आहे, पण आता लोक मरतायत, आता हिंसा आहे ती अजून. सो आय थिंक उमरा इज द थिंग दॅट अलाउज यू टू चेक युअर own perception and understanding, to be critical of what we are looking at. So मला म्हणून वाटतं की खेळ जो असतो तो आय थिंक द थ्रेशोल्डनेस, ज्याला आपण थ्रेशोल्डनेस, उंबऱ्यावरती राहून तुम्ही आतला आणि बाहेरचं. दॅट डझंट मीन दॅट की वी कॅन डिनाय व्हॉट हॅपन बिफोर. दॅट डझंट मीन दॅट की वी कॅन we can access it as it is. But what we can do is that through Umra, we can access past for our own reality. And with the same perception, I look at एकच प्याला. एकच प्याला, आमच्याकडे ना संगीत नाटक किती छान, किती गाणी किती भारी असतात. ती असं किती बघा वन्स मोर किती द्यायचं त्याच्यात. मी 2दा 3दा वन्स मोर. हो, पण ते नाटक आहे, ते काही गाणं म्हणण्याचं ठिकाण नाहीये. ते काही नटाला तुमचे गाणे किती छान म्हणतात, इट्स नॉट अबाउट दॅट थिंग. इट्स अ ड्रामा, इट्स अ थिएटर. सो बैठकीतलं गाणं वेगळं असतं त्याच्यामध्ये, ज्याला त्यांनी करू शकतो. पण दॅट आय थिंक दॅट हॅज टू बी क्वेश्चन. सो while I celebrate the past, while I celebrate the childhood, while I celebrate heritage, but at the same time, past is not stagnant. Past is not rigid. Heritage is not to be kept in the closed. Yeah, it has to be.
Right.
It has to be brought into the life because it has its own life, and with all the intricacies, all the.
Yeah.
त्याच्यामध्ये जात आहे, त्याच्यामध्ये धर्म आहे, त्याच्यामधला नातेसंबंधातले आहे, त्याच्यामध्ये स्त्री पुरुषाचं असलेपण आहे. आणि म्हणजे मग आपण आजी आजोबांच्या बद्दल बोलतो, आई वडिलांच्या बद्दल बोलतो, पण एकाला नेहमी स्पेस मिळाली आहे आणि एकीला स्पेस मिळालेली नाही, दिली गेलेली नाही. दरवेळेला हो आमचं छान जेवण करायची आजी, हो ठीक आहे, पण ती जेवणच करत राहील किंवा तिला जेवणच करत ठेवलं, हा जो दॅट आय थिंक उमरा गीत.
Yeah, great. Thank you. It was a wonderful explanation. Ashutosh, I would like to know your thoughts about the role of literature in our lives. So why it should be preserved or, updated or even republished for the new generations.
I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this term preservation because of course preservation because preservation implies that something is there and it has to be saved. What I feel is that something like language or literature cannot be just preserved. It is a part of our life. So something that is part of you, we don't preserve our relationships. We don't say that, okay, I'm preserving. We don't say this, I preserve love, I preserve hate. No, we don't say that because language and literacy is organically part of our life. It's there inbuilt system. We are there. And language is there, and that comes with us. So let's think about it in other ways, because something that we live with is not to be preserved; it has to be lived with. So like something like Marathi language, Marathi nata, Marathi whatever. So or Marathi food, Marathi ways of living, or Gujarati ways of living, Indian ways of living, or like what. So there are specificities, there are local things, but they are also connected with the larger world. So I think something is going to survive, that's going to survive. And since it's going to be part of life, we can facilitate the process. That's what we can do. So I can say that, okay, 10 people are there who, for instance, 10 people are there who like theater, who like literature, who like cooking. So they can come together and they can facilitate process where communication is enhanced through, say, for instance, cooking, or communication can be enhanced through literature. That way we can say that. But preserving something, instead of preserving, if we can constantly engage with it through different kind of forms, that is going to be obviously there. So my assumption and also my belief is that nothing dies. There is a death is not possible. Maybe what we can say is this key. It exists in different forms. So that way, I mean, that's the one thing, practical thing. Yes, something dies, but also something stays with us for a long time. If that's there in the system, in inbuilt process. So I think instead of saying, okay, let's save Marathi. When we say that, we are assuming that Marathi is something different from us. So Marathi is there somewhere and we are saving it for. No, it's not like that. Marathi is a part of my my life. So, and I'm just giving an example. In a similar thing, it's about English. It's about Gujarati. Any other form of expression. So I write something in some form because I have some organic connection with that particular form. And someone writes in some other form because and language. Yeah, so there is some other organic connection. So I think everyone has space and freedom. I mean, that he or she should be given the space and freedom to express in that particular language, and that's how language is going to be there alive in our life. So मला मराठी तर कधीच असं म्हणजे ती मराठी संपत चालली आहे वगैरे हे जे बऱ्याचशा गोष्टी बोलतात इट्स मला नाही कसं वाटत. मला वाटतं मराठी संपत चालली आहे असं म्हणण्यापेक्षा मराठीची रूपं बदलत आहेत असं आपण म्हणू. आधी बोलली जाते तशी भाषा बोलली जाते पण आधीच ग्रेट आणि आताच कमी ग्रेट असं काही नाही. आता रूपं बदलत आहेत असं आपण म्हणू शकतो. असं म्हणू शकतो की भाषा वेगळ्या भाषाचं संकर होऊन काहीतरी होतंय. आता त्याला आताच्या काळामध्ये त्या अर्थानं संशोधन करणारी लोक कमिटेड लोक आपल्याला दिसतात असं वाटत असेल असं आपण म्हणू शकतो. किंवा इन्स्टिट्यूशन सपोर्ट किती मिळतो त्याच्यावरती आपण समाजाला कितपत गरज आहे त्याच्यावरती आपण भाष्य करू शकतो. मला वाटतं की हे भाषा सेव्ह करणारा आपण कोण आहे. आपण जर आपल्या जगण्याचा भाग असेल तर काहीतरी राहतच ते.
बरोबर. You have been teaching English and Indian literature to various target groups, that is undergraduates and postgraduates. So how is this experience?
एक तर teaching has been part of my profession for a long time. Since beginning I have been in the profession of teaching different different colleges and universities, but also in different contexts. वेगवेगळ्या भाषिक समूहाशी मी संवाद साधत असतो. तो वेगळा भाषिक समूह हा वेगळ्या सांस्कृतिक सामाजिक आर्थिक रचनांमधून आलेला असतो. So I have been engaging with different students, different communities from villages, small towns, as well as cities like Pune and other places. That the Ingreji, it's my profession, and also the thing about English is not just I'm not just looking at it as a very different from the life, because we also express in our own Englishes. It's like we have been expressing ourselves in own Marathis in a similar fashion. We also express in our own Englishes. So it's a very much dialogic connection with life. Also, it's not just about being in an academy, but also it's about engaging with students from different contexts with different pedagogic possibilities. So with my teaching work, I also bring in creative things, and I also believe in these. The fact that these categories are not rigid categories. एक teaching है, एक research है, एक creative writing है. Somehow माझ्या practice मध्ये I combine all these things. So because they are also interconnected. So with the last play that I wrote, I engage with the archival material that's there in the libraries and other spaces. And I wrote a play, but also that archive material become part of my pedagogic engagement in the class. मुलांच्या बरोबर काम करत असताना ते असतं. So I do workshops with students on some of the material, but at the same time I bring some of these things, objects in my writing. I respond to those things also. So in a way, शिक्षण आणि इंग्रजी तर राहणारच आहे भाषा. असं काही की मला असं वाटतं की परकीयांची भाषा वगैरे असं काय मला आता वाटत नाही, बिकॉज वी हॅव मूव्ड अहेड, फार अहेड बियॉन्ड calling it as a kind of परकीय भाषा, foreign language. We have to change that vocabulary now. And so time. सो मला असं पण नाही वाटत की ही मराठी आणि ही इंग्लिश, त्याच्यामध्ये इंग्रजीमुळे मराठीचं नुकसान व्हायला किंवा मराठीमुळे इंग्रजीचं नुकसान व्हायला, असंही नाही. देर इज अ काइंड ऑफ hybrid process, as well as there is a kind of each language has unique characteristics, and we have to also acknowledge those characteristics. जिथं मराठी नेस असतं तसं ते इंग्लिश नेस पण आहे, तसंच गुजराती नेस आहे, तसंच हिंदी नेस आहे. ते सगळ्यांचं आपलं आपलं आहे. अँड इट्स वी आर इन अमेझिंग कंट्री वेअर ऑल द लँग्वेजेस कॅन लिव्ह, सर्वाइव्ह अँड थ्राईव्ह टुगेदर. म्हणजे आमच्या घरी तरी माझी आजी कन्नड पण बोलायची, माझे वडिलांना कन्नड पण येते. ते कुठे जिथे जिथे कन्नड लोक असतील तिथे ते कन्नड मध्ये पण बोलतात. सो बिकॉज आय ग्रू अप इन बॉर्ड एरिया, कारण कोल्हापूर तरी किती कर्नाटकाजवळच आहे. ते मुद्दा असा आहे की हे सगळं ऍक्च्युली ग्रेट थिंग अबाउट इंग्लिश or मराठी or कन्नड इज ऍक्च्युली इट कॅन, these languages can take you out of these, boundaries. आणि खूप छान असतं. आणि पल्याड जाऊन आपण बोलू शकतो. बिकॉज when I was in Karnataka, I didn't have any issues about sharing something in my own language. आणि बऱ्याच वेळेला आपल्याला अशा पण गोष्टी असतात की ते आपण इंग्लिशमध्ये व्यक्त नाही करू शकतो. You cannot express everything. Sometimes you cannot express everything in Marathi also. So, for example, academic language, sometimes I find it more comfortable to write and talk in English. And sometimes I like to talk something in Marathi. तर अशामुळे काय असं होत नसतं की एखाद्या भाषेमध्ये आपलं एक्सप्रेशन मर्यादित असू शकतं, एखाद्या भाषेमध्ये आपलं नसू शकतं, असं असतं. एखादी भाषा इट्स अ लेवल ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन, ॲट सम पॉइंट इट्स लेवल ऑफ क्रिएटिव्ह एक्सप्रेशन. अँड वन्स वी एक्नॉलेज इट, देर वोंट बी एनी काइंड ऑफ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. म्हणून मला ऍक्च्युली ब्रॉडली इंग्लिश पण छान वाटतं, कारण you can reach out to the wider audience. It's not just about reaching. Sometimes you want to express anything. Right. Sometimes also it opens up new possibilities. मला तरी म्हणजे एका बाजूला असं नेहमी असं चित्र, एका बाजूला महात्मा गांधी आहेत आणि दुसऱ्या बाजूला डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब. So you could see that they have different approaches, and both are fascinating approaches. And I wish I could combine. We wish we could combine. एका बाजूला गाव पण आहे, दुसऱ्या बाजूला शहर पण आहे. एका बाजूला गावाचं गाव पण असतं आणि शहराचं शहर तुम्हाला मोकळं करतं. इट ऑल्सो गिव्स यू स्पेस. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has suggested different points. And also going back to villages also allows to look at your own possibilities. मग याचा अर्थ असा नाही की गाव मर्यादित असतं, याचा अर्थ असा नाही की मराठी मर्यादित. त्या गावपणाच्या अवकाशामध्ये जग मोठं असतं. सो महेश एलकुंचवार, लाईक अ रायटर, ही हॅज लिव्ड इन नागपूर फॉर years, and she has been able to write amazing literature, natak asu de or essays. So small town or Marathi or Gao or Kitler dialect, it's also full with possibility, full with exploration. आणि संपूर्ण एक अख्खी व्यवस्था आहे, that's very end. It's a fascinating system. So is शहर. मला बऱ्याच वेळेला हे खूप असं काय म्हणतात त्याला, खूप पॉप्युलिस्ट असतं की गावाकडे चला किंवा शहराकडे चला, आपल्या ह्याचा शोध घ्यायला पाहिजे, परंपरा. सो इन ऑर्डर टू सर्च फॉर युअर ओन ट्रॅडिशन अँड हेरिटेज, यू डोंट हॅव टू गो टू गाव ऑल द टाइम. गावाकडं जाऊन शोधायला पाहिजे. पण ते शोधत असताना मला असं वाटतं मराठी किंवा इंग्रजी ह्या दोन भाषेंमध्ये शोधत असताना we have to search for our own identity within that class and caste dynamic.
Hmm.
So when we speak in Marathi, when we use Marathi, we are also embedded in different caste structures, and we should be conscious about it, or class structure, or gender structure. So is also fact with English. There is a caste, there is class, there is also gender, there is race. So I think that excites me a lot while I move between both the languages. Uh, and so my teaching has allowed me to explore all these characteristics of language, culture, and society, and also politics. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. You're currently working on an anthology of the greatest Marathi stories. So when is it due for publishing? Can you tell us about it?
See, actually, I've been working, so I don't know something. This has been working like for last 1 year. I have been working on. So I'm actually editing an anthology of Marathi stories I like. So, um, so I have begun with stories written by Baburao Bagul, Sri Mamati, and Navahu Sati. So Venkatesh Madhukar, starting from there, and I'm really like fascinated by all these story writers, especially these. And then uh, the selection will cover stories written by like Jayanta Pawar, Milinda Bokhi. So till then I have kind of stopped. So till then I have covered Ranganath Pathare, Rajan Kapoor.
Yes.
So Bhaskar Chandanshi. So all these writers, Gauri Deshpande. So around 27, 28 short stories I have identified, and I'm getting them translated from different people. So they are helping me. Actually, I'm learning a lot while doing this project, because in a way, although I have been translating, but they're translating fiction from the stories from Marathi to English is a big thing. You have very few translators like Shanta Gokhale and Jerry Pinto and Jayanta Karve. So very few of them are there in Marathi. Those who translate from Marathi to English and in good line. Someone like Shanta Tai, and she has been doing work for years, and she is inspiration. She is. Sometimes I feel that so she is a kind of uh, example of how one can do amazing work in different forms simultaneously. She's a novelist, she's a translator, she's a scholar, she's a critic. I mean, not scholar, she doesn't call herself scholar, but critic. She has been writing on plays, she has been looking at different archival material of Bombay or Chabilla server in Bombay. Satyadev Dubey, Veena Pani Chawla. Amazing work. She has translated Uddhav Sharke's novel Dhag into English. So she is an inspiration. I find her just like an inspiration. That's all. And so these are all things that I learn a lot. So sometimes I look at like the way they translate Marathi into English. She translates, and also there is Jerry Pinto, who is also himself a creative. So I think that also is the thing about translation. It's a thing, but also being a creative writer that brings in different dynamics in translation.
Yes.
So yeah, so I look at their translations and learn a lot how they translate different sentence structures, different words.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's helping me a lot to learn.
Great. Okay. So coming to the almost the end of the interview now, I have two questions. One is, what is that one thing that you would like to change in the language industry?
Language industry, change in the language.
Industry.
Will you please
Yeah.
explain it? Like what?
Yes. What I mean to say here is there are certain things that we like and some things which we don't like.
Hmm.
So, for example, there are certain practices which we would like to change and have it our way, that, okay, I want this to be like this. So,
Hmm.
that is the question.
I'm not sure I am in a position
Mhm.
to respond
Sure.
to this question
Okay.
because I don't know much. I mean, in a way, I cannot give
Mhm.
any kind of comprehensive response because I'm
No
sure
problem.
there are a number of things happening around language
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
literature. I'm
Mhm.
sure there are a number of scholars, institutes. They have been working.
Mhm.
uh, so and also I don't know if I want to change something. I mean that way uh, because everything has very specific context. Hmm.
Mhm.
So like you are a technical translator, but then you come from different contexts.
Mhm.
So I'm not that way like technical language expert.
Mhm.
So and my basically my practice is in literature. So
Mhm.
there is a language thing, there is literature thing. So
Yes.
all of us are doing different kinds of work. So
Mhm.
so without like having knowledge of certain field, I cannot say this. Okay, this has to be changed. What I can
Sure.
say is that literature remains flowing. It remains
Mhm.
evolving. It remains
Mhm.
changing. So there are also different phases, uh, different changes that a society goes through, and we are going through kind of different change. And of course, we have gone through changes before as well. It's not that it's
Agree.
something like uh, something that is happening for the first time.
Good.
So it's not. But I can say is that something
Mhm.
happening unique to our life that we can articulate
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
So, for instance, I feel like when I'm working on this translation project or I work with archival material, I
Mhm.
work with different contributors of Hakara,
Mhm.
different colleagues of mine. I realize that there is a lot of work is to be
Mhm.
done by us,
Mhm.
by me. Or when I look at work done by Shanta Gokhale, so it's like a huge work.
Huge.
मोठेच्या मोठं काम केलेलं आहे. So where we are, that kind of thing. And she's been motivated to do the thing. And I think
She
there are
has.
things to learn from these people. Like you see the kind of work that V.K. Rajwade has done,
Mhm.
or like Dr. Ambedkar has done. So all these people have done a lot of work. Um, I think what we can do is just we can remain more and more open and see uh, how we can accept different voices, listen different voices, and see how
Yeah.
languages and literatures have been changing
Mhm.
in today's time. And maybe some of the things that we can contribute to are one thing, translations can be
Mhm.
done. Some material, like for example, when I was working on previous two plays, I realized there's really very less archival material. For example, if there are photographs, so
Mhm.
I see some of the photographs lying on the footpaths or old books lying on
Oh.
the footpaths. I feel like this there is a kind of richness in the material. Uh,
Mhm.
I see like all these like last 10 years or so, number of libraries, small libraries in different cities have been shut down. And you'll surprised to know that when you walk through old bookshops, रद्दीची जी असतात ते पुस्तकं असतात, ते पुस्तकं जी वर्तमानपत्र, त्या गठ्ठ्यामध्ये तुम्हाला ही यू गेट टू सी ऑल these old books coming from the library direct. Or like someone, one of the fascinating things that I would like to share with you. So I walk through all these old second-hand bookshops in Pune, in Kolhapur, wherever I go, I just visit some of the shops. I realized in last few years, I realized that if there is a senior person in that particular city or village or town, a senior like academician, writer, so what his or her contribution to that family is of books, through books. And then, suddenly you get to see these books signed by that particular person in a second-hand bookshop, in a Raddita Dukan. Then I get shocked yeah, this person has passed on very recently. And the family cannot hold the material that is given by the person. Because immediately after 6 months or 1 year after this man passes on, this material is brought out to second-hand bookshop or Raddiwala. I get so shocked. So we have continued that person's bank deposit. We have continued because there is someone to carry forward the bank deposit, but not books. Not old books.
That's a sad story. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So the point is that then what is this? I feel stunned, and I have all these copies that have come to, because I can't buy everything because I don't have place. Home. So my point has, and also I'm sure that particular family wouldn't have the place to hold those books. I'm sure that too. But then we are talking about heritage. Then we are talking about culture. And then we are doing all these conversations about language and
yes.
So I think हे थोडंसं हे आहे. हे थोडं काहीतरी odd वाटतं. So I feel it's very odd. So we all are flourishing in our middle class nuclear family structure, which is okay. But the thing is that how will we engage with the past? So as I began saying, engagement with the past doesn't have to be nostalgic. But then it doesn't have to be very rude also. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be very, very, very neglecting, very neutral also. So then what are we nostalgic about? Something that can decorate our living room with copper utensils, with a piece of old radio that is displayed in our decorated family living room, or some for, I don't know how, but then maybe can we identify newer ways of archiving the material and opening that material into the public domain, giving them to a newer generation, scholars, students. I think that can be done more effectively, more programmatically. So instead of saying all the time, "Na, आमच्या काळी असं होतं." So actually, can we show old yellow pages of the books from, let's say, 1960s and 70s, and share them with the next generation and say, okay, can you respond to this material in some way? Please don't keep it in your cupboard. Don't show it to other people. हो ना, आमच्याकडे ना बघा रामरक्षेची जुनी लिहिलेली प्रत आहे, तुकाराम महाराजांच्या गाथेची लिहिलेली प्रत. हो आहे, ठीक आहे, छान आहे, नमस्कार करू त्याला. But then what? What next? And so there is a sense, there is an accumulation, but then can we extend that accumulation into engagement? I think that's what one of the challenges that I see in today's world. Um, uh, so yeah, I don't know how to address that because it's a huge thing. I mean, there are different thoughts, but while I'm talking now, and uh, since you also work in language and literature, so if there are any possibilities of building these spaces, or maybe we can digitally archive them and uh, build it to the next generation. And also the thing is that it's not about my family. What I'm saying, it's about society. So there is kind of, there are a number of people who have been working. I'm sure, like, I'm just talking about those people who had tradition of writing, reading in the family. And there are like societies now, large number of people who didn't know what to write, how to write, reading. But that doesn't mean that there's that form doesn't exist. That society doesn't exist. Now, my question in this kind of contemporary digital reality is that, are we going to archive or sustain with the heritage, quote unquote, that is there only in killas, forts, or in books? And what about those voices that were not allowed to express their voice because of the caste, because of the class, because of the gender? So how are we looking into this thing? So-called digital revolution, so-called WhatsApp revolution, is that going to kind of bring that to the fore, to the so-called next generation? But not just to bring it to fore, but can we build kind of engagement, any form of engagement? Could that be creative? Could that be critical as well? And actually, we have been, like, sustaining different forms in the society very differently. But then, how do we do with this literature and language? And it is going to change, basically.
Yes.
So गळे काढणं काही अर्थ नाही. ते आमच्याकडे ना आमची भाषा एवढी ग्रेट होती, आमची मराठी फारच ग्रेट होती. काही मला ते करण्यापेक्षा ऍक्च्युली व्हॉट कॉन्ट्रीब्युशन वी आर मेकिंग टू दिस चेंज, दॅट्स इम्पॉर्टंट, आय थिंक. पण आणि बाकीचं ना, खाण्यापिण्याच्या बाबतीत आपण सगळं करत असतो. लाईक इट्स नॉट दॅट की वी हॅव लेफ्ट, सगळं छान सुरू असतं. पण ते जिथे ऍक्च्युली काम करायचं वेळ येते त्यावेळेला वी लॅग बिहाइंड.
True. Very well said.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
And for joining us on the show.
Yes.
And wish you all the best for your future plans.
Yes. Thank you to you and E-Prasaran for giving me this opportunity talking to you. And thank you to
so much,
Lalita Marathi and Janavi Burav, both of you, and the entire team of E-Prasaran.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.